I want you to imagine being stranded in a barren, unfamiliar desert and forced to confront impossible choices just to make it to sunrise. Not that it's something that's likely to happen to us, but instead, by considering what we do in these most extreme of circumstances, we might also reveal the type of person we'd become in the process. What would you sacrifice? Your dignity? Your integrity? Would you give up your very identity if it meant one more sunrise? Go on, take a second. Draw that line for yourself. I'll wait. Because these are the types of questions that 11-bit studios wants rattling around in your skull as you play their game, The Alters. The story centers on Jan Dolsky, a humble blue-collar worker turned a reluctant astronaut, long story, who crash lands on a lifeless planet after his mining expedition goes catastrophically off script. He survives the crash. The rest of his crew, not so much. At the very beginning of the game, Jan finds each of them dead in their escape pods, eerily intact with no clear cause of death, like so many morbid, unopened action figures.
No, it's the captain. Shit.
To make matters worse, Jan's hulking crawler vehicle, his mobile home /base/wheel, is wrecked beyond easy repair. And above it all looms a literal deadline, a rising sun a la Pitch Black with Vin Diesel, about to scorch the planet's surface to straight glass.
Kira! What? Get that ass moving!
Yeah, and you thought I was just being lazy by using the word sunrise twice in the first minute. If he can't fix the crawler and keep it moving, he's basically rotisserie Jan. Early on, the comms start to crackle with half-garbled messages from Earth. Fragments like, sunrise is coming, you must move, danger imminent. At first, it's just enigmatic messages made by bad reception. Enter the planet's strange and only gift, an element called rupidium, a volatile mineral that can bend biology and causality itself. At first glance, you might peg the Alters as a fairly standard survival crafting ordeal. Dwindling resources, hostile environment, one man versus the elements. And, I'm not going to judge what you do in private. I was right there with you, fully expecting just another survival game with a gimmick. Like, clones? Really? But it was on Game Pass, and I was bored, so I decided to take the leap. And what I found beneath that familiar surface lies something far more unsettling and existentially fraught. The clone mechanic isn't a gimmick at all. It's a grenade. And once it goes off, nothing about the Alters feels comfortable again. Even the victories are hollow. It all brings into focus the game's rich philosophical pedigree, Machiavelli's ruthless logic mixing with Camus' absurd hero, and behind it all, the question of how many versions of yourself you can integrate, erase, substitute, or sacrifice before nothing's left of you. But before we dive any deeper into that stuff, let's pause and run through the story properly, because to appreciate all the philosophical craziness to come, you really need to know how the Alters actually plays out. So consider this your spoiler.
No other way down.
Jan's only hope is rupidium's bizarre power. It allows him to create alternate versions of himself, Alters, pulled from the paths not taken of his own life. In plain terms, he can clone himself. Each Alter is fully him, or could have been him if life had gone a bit differently. And they have unique skills, helpful for fixing the crawler, cooking meals, growing food, etc. But also unique personalities and memories. Imagine meeting a version of yourself who made one critical choice differently 10 years ago. That's who Jan is conjuring into existence. He needed a tool, but made a whole-ass person. It's weird and it's intimate. The first time Jan fires up the cloning device, fittingly nicknamed the Womb, the voice on the comms is telling him to do this, that it's the only way. He doesn't even realize exactly what he's doing and ends up cloning a sheep.
Of course. What else?
Which we'll talk about in a bit. But the second time, he absolutely does know what's going on. He just desperately needs an extra pair of hands to repair a critical system. And while I do want to respect the moment, I also want to point out that the command button for this action says alterate. No, you didn't hear that wrong, not alternate, which is an actual word with a meaning that fits the action. Alterate.
What the
And sure enough, out pops Technician Jan, an alterate Jan who stayed in the trades, honing mechanical skills. But Technician Jan's arrival is not a feel-good high-five moment. He is furious, disoriented, and demands to be treated as a person, not a product.
Wow. You bastard. I can see now what the meds are for. I can't even lash out at you, just this passiveness. What am I?
From minute one, the game makes it clear, creating life isn't a convenient survival trick, it's an ethical earthquake. Now, technically, the game does let you refuse this path. You could, in theory, stand there twiddling your thumbs, refusing to create a clone, and just sleeping, pooping, and changing the radiation filters, and not flushing, you monster. But here's the rub. A key piece of machinery is irreparably broken without another worker, so if you don't clone someone to fix it, you're just going to sit there until the sun boils you alive. Which I did, and it does. The designers give you this illusion of choice. You can delay and ponder your morals, but eventually, if you want the story to continue, you have to push that button. No alter, no progress. Jan, and you, by extension, have to cross that Rubicon.
Hey there. I said, don't come near me.
And of course, Technician Jan makes that first crossing feel personal. He agrees to help get the crawler going because, as pissed as he is at Jan Prime, he doesn't want to cook.
Are you deaf? I don't give a damn about your comms room. We're moving, aren't we? Now get out of my face, creep.
Lucas suggests that you bring up shared memories. So you talk about a loving mother and an abusive, alcoholic father.
Guess I was afraid of making things worse. Yeah. I remember the feeling. But then I reached a breaking point. Looks like you didn't hang around long enough to reach yours.
The real breakthrough, however, arrives over a pot of improvised pierogi. Both Jans remember their mother's cooking, so Jan Prime jerry-rigs her recipe in an effort to mend fences. Not everything's perfect, but he's suddenly no longer a tool, no longer just a reminder of guilt. He's a man who lived a different life. But 11-bit couldn't leave well enough alone. First, Technician Jan is the one who suggests that even the two of them aren't enough to get to the rendezvous point for rescue.
If you want to survive, you're gonna need more people. People? What people? The Rapidium's there. Use it. Make more versions of me.
Which leads to an especially ominous comment.
One day you'll look back and realize I was the easy one. Mark my words.
So Jan creates another altar, then another, and another, eventually going full Michael Keaton in multiplicity.
Doug, if I might.
Each new altar comes from a different life Jan Prime could have led, complete with all the baggage that entails. They expand Jan's capabilities to survive. You finally have experts to grow food, heal injuries, and refine fuel, but they also expand the story's emotional range. Because, surprise, these folks don't always get along. Imagine a group project composed entirely of you from your worst days. Fun, right? So let's round out the cast, and before anybody says anything, I am switching back and forth to putting Jan in front and behind the descriptor because in some places it sounds better to me up front and in some it sounds better behind. It's just an idiosyncrasy of mine, so I'm sorry if it bothers you. First up is Botanist Jan, who spends his days hidden away in the greenhouse, checking the soil and tending to the plants. He's the version of Jan that stayed with Lena. They got married, and he took a back seat in order to let her career thrive. When he speaks to you, he lowers his voice and says it feels wrong that the memory of her has been split in two.
So, what? All those things I shared, I thought they were just between me and her. Now, I have to live with the fact that you had them too. So, even if I did, does it reduce the value of what you shared with her?
There's no answer that makes the air any lighter between the two of you, at least not for now. Scientist Jan immediately recognizes that he's a clone.
Wait, how do you know? Well, isn't it obvious? I wake up seeing someone who looks and sounds like me, which has to mean we share the same DNA. Then there's the glasses.
What about them?
They're fake. Probably just manufactured to make me feel more like myself, but completely unnecessary otherwise, because here I am with perfectly good eyesight in the womb module.
He sees himself as superior both to you and to the other Jans and basically everybody. To him, this is a self-evident fact. From the start, he sets himself up as this sort of shadow overseer, quick to let you know when you step out of line in his eyes. He is the stereotypical, coldly rational, emotionless robot of a brilliant scientist. If you're Jan, he's the you could have been if you'd thrown everything else away and buried yourself in the equations and data.
We'll all make it, don't worry, okay? Oh, please. I'm not worried for myself. There's a lot more at stake here than just our fleeting lives. Can't you see? The world will miss so much if I go too soon.
But Refiner Jan is a bro. He just wants to get mad yoked, slam some pro shakes, and refine the shit out of some materials for you, brah.
Do you think there's a chance you could help me get my hands on some exercise equipment here? I could try. Really? Thanks, bro. I knew I could confide in you.
Or at least that's the version of Jan he projects, pretending the grind is good enough to keep him steady. But the mask cracks whenever Ben's name surfaces, the gap in his history that he can't quite patch. He was supposed to be there on the oil rig beside his friend, but he wasn't, and the rig exploded. The survivor's guilt is strong with this one. Then there's Dr. Jan, the one who tries to hold the crawler together with routine. He cooks, he checks vitals, he offers advice in a tone that suggests he's already exhausted by the idea of giving it.
Listen, I'm just trying to tell you that rationalizing morally doubtful choices is a road to nowhere. Cross the line and there's no going back.
With a southern accent that's been a bit too long in the oven, too.
My name is Jan Dolsky, and I volunteered to join the crew as a physician.
Seriously, why do these guys have vastly different accents? They all essentially grew up in the same place. When Doctor slips into stories about his past, you can see the cost of that fatigue, sacrifices he made, and ideals that he bent until they broke. Jan Minor, or Minor Jan, I guess, neither one really sounds good, lingers with me more than the others do, if only just because his arc, or at least part of it, cuts right into my own experience. He awakens in agony, clutching the brand new arm that Rapidium gave him, a fucked up sort of Uno reverse phantom pain.
Well, I used to be a miner, but then I lost my hand in an accident. Hey, wait a minute. What the f*** is this? My f***ing arm. It's there again. Okay, I'm done with your little survey. Tell me what's going on. What have you done to my body?
You see, the womb doesn't actually recreate the body of the original alters. Instead, in a much more grotesque manner, it just shoves their minds into an exact copy of Jan Prime. They're given a body that is almost theirs in every way. Almost. But not exactly. None of the details are right. It's like getting into a car after someone else has driven it. The seat's in the wrong position, the mirrors are wonky. Everything is wrong, just slightly out of order. The others might see the new arm as restoration, but to Minor Jan, it's wrong. Alien, like something welded onto his body. The pain never eases, it gnaws at him. He begs you through Jan Prime for relief in the form of opioids, and you hear the old stories of his addiction in every breath, or at least I did.
What are you talking about? Painkillers, what else? Tramadol, hydrocodone, codeine, or that shit you doped me with before? Come on, bro. I'm not a kid, I know what I'm doing. Spent half my fucking life on painkillers.
It's impossible to tell what's manipulation and what's real pain.
Fuck you, sadist.
That line definitely stayed in the air, though. I know this script too well, because I've been the one asking and I've been the one refusing. So when Jan Miner begs, my brain stamps the word addict on his forehead. But maybe that's not the truth. Maybe that's just my history twisting the scene. Is he faking the pain, or am I just afraid to believe him? I tell myself that saying no is responsible, but it doesn't feel like it.
F you, sadist.
Especially when I was later proven wrong, that the pain was not only real the whole time, but it was mind-shattering in its intensity. Here's the real gut punch, though. I don't think there was a right choice. If you gave him more opioids, you maintain his pliability and you relieve his pain, but you watch him spiral into dependency. If you cut him off...
Did you just chop your arm off?
What's it look like? A fucking prank. I had to get rid of it.
The phantom pain, the withdrawals, the existential horror of that limb drove him to literal self-mutilation. In my story, that's exactly what happened. He had fixed the problem.
It was real. Real pain, and I ended it. Like you couldn't. Just fuck off.
To say the scene haunted me is poetic understatement. In a game full of sci-fi strangeness, Jan Miner's tale is scarily human. Well, really, they all are, but I guess it just depends on which one you relate the most to. I still second-guess my choices with him, and that discomfort is the point. The Alters finds horror not in aliens, but in the frailties of the human mind. There are other Alters, but these are the ones that I got to know on my journey. Jan Prime, the player character, isn't automatically the hero or the leader in really any of the Alters' eyes. At best, he's just a guy who has a tenuous grasp on the whole consent thing. At worst, he's the goddamn motherfucker that played God and ripped a human being out of their life and into an alien universe, piloting a body that lands heavily in the uncanny valley. Either way, the more that pile into the crawler, the more you realize how portentous Technician Jan's words truly were.
One day you'll look back and realize I was the easy one. Mark my words.
And then there's Lena. She's not in the crawler, not another Jan, yet her shadow hangs over everything. She and Jan were once lovers back on Earth until life did its thing. By the time of the mission, they'd split, but the comms keep her close enough to sting. She's the last truly human voice in Jan's orbit, and the relationship is complicated. Part professional, part ghost of intimacy. But Jan knows her, unlike Lucas or Maxwell. And even if you, the player, don't fully trust what she's saying, that still means something.
I know. It's awkward for me, too. We haven't spoken in a while, and suddenly this.
Later, when botanist Jan reaches out to her under Jan Prime's name, it lands like a gut punch because the affection was never truly gone. It's just buried under static. Together, this uneasy family of Jans tries to keep the crawler moving ahead of the murderous dawn. You, the player, juggle all the classic survival mechanics, collect resources, build upgrades, manage oxygen and power, and plus a growing list of personal dramas. Alters have their own needs and wants and grievances. One might demand a specific module be built into the base, like a park bench or even a little gym, just so they can still feel useful or sane. And then there's Maxwell.
And your alters? Are there many of them?
I'm trying to keep their number limited.
There's a moment early on where, as a test of Rapidium, a sheep named Molly is cloned. The mission code name is Dolly, of course. Maxwell, the corporate overseer back at Mission Control, has a dark sense of humor. The kind of guy who names an expedition after a cloned sheep because it makes him laugh, and then leans on you to treat that joke like policy. He doesn't actually care if Jan survives. What he wants is Rapidium, and he'll happily turn the crawler, the crew, and every clone on board into props for that prize. The bizarre detour with Molly underlines both the wondrous potential and the absurdity of what Rapidium can do. Also, let's be real, it hints that Maxwell kind of planned this all along, but we'll get back to him. Essentially, every action in the Alters takes time, and the clock never lets you forget it. Cook a meal and 20 minutes slide off the day. Patch a crawler module and you lose hours. Build a new radiation filter and you might burn through a couple more, and before you know it, the day is gone. The numbers look small until you realize the days are finite. 1 hour can mean food on the table or empty plates. 20 hours can mean a whole cycle gone, the sun sinking and the valley turning into a death zone. And if your time is up, the sunrise is unceremonious. Every task is a trade-off. You start thinking in hours instead of objectives, like how much can I do before curfew? What has to wait while the radiation storm rages outside? It's here that creating more altars stops becoming a moral dilemma and starts being survival. Maxwell, Lucas, and even Technician Jan were all right. One man really cannot keep it all afloat. The base becomes a schedule written in colored bars and timers. A repair kit finishes at 1430. Refiner makes a mush at 1500. Scientist Jan got radiation poisoning and needs to rest for hours in the infirmary. Each line is another choice. Scout for organics or spend that hour sitting with botanist Jan before his morale breaks. It's never just efficiency. The cross-section of the crawler plays into this too. From the outside, it looks like a cutaway dollhouse. Each Jan in his room, busy figurines rushing between stations, and it's your job to manage them. At first, it's overwhelming. My first week was panic. Food low, machines broken, no idea what to do. But the more you play, the more the numbers blur. You automate all of your products, and building turns into maintaining. And then the difficulty is in the people. Each Jan wakes up with their own limits, their moods, their breaking points. Treat them like cogs and the crawler grinds down. I once had a near mutiny after Refiner Jan spent 2 straight days drilling ore in a radioactive area and nearly cooked alive, just because I wasn't really paying attention. The solution wasn't another machine or another altar, it was just some rest and a social module and an awkward game of beer pong. And the systems overlap in a way that ties everything back to that theme. Calories, oxygen, radiation, they're survival concerns, yes, but so are pride and loneliness. Cook up a nicer meal and you use up more organics that could have made more mush. But it also improves morale. Spend an evening burning the midnight oil and repairing the crawler, or let everyone gather in front of the TV for a few hours of relaxation. Both have costs. Neither is strictly optimal. And unlike most survival sims, there's not really a formula to memorize here. Your crew has opinions. They wander off. They suggest their own fixes. And the game rewards you for noticing these things. Skip the micromanagement, build in space for breaks, and suddenly everything seems to run smoother. You're not constantly putting out fires left and right. Movie night raises joy bubbles and jokes start flying. Tasks get finished faster. The work takes care of itself when the people feel like people.
Okay, but we can use a rusty blade covered in everybody else's
It's getting
blood?
scary.
Oh.
The more you refuse, the more we know it's you.
Oh, that's kind of a good point. Makes you seem like an alien.
No, it's not!
For a while, if you're competent and a bit lucky, you can juggle it all. You and your cadre of altars inch closer to a solution, maybe even a way off the rock. There are moments of triumph, successfully maintaining the flow of resources and tool creation, fixing a major system, or sharing a warm meal in the common room. Even a cheesy group sing-along that feels like it took heavy inspiration from Alan Wake 2, even if that timeline probably doesn't work out.
Looking at the path ahead.
Even the anomalies tie back in. Out in the dark, the radiation storms seem to cough up these glowing blisters in space-time that you burn away with your illuminator. It's basically a high-powered flashlight. You just have to hold the beam down until they eventually pop. Again, the whole thing feels like 11-bit were cribbing heavily from Alan Wake 2 in Control, a horror minigame tucked into a survival sim. My point, though, is it breaks the rhythm, but in a way that fits, because of course, destroying the anomalies takes up precious time. It's a reminder that no matter how careful you've been, the planet always wants those hours back, and it has plenty of tricks up its sleeve to get them. But, briefly, you're allowed to believe that the challenge of this game is just keeping those plates spinning. And right then, the game throws a chair at you like you're a Waffle House employee. Plates be damned. Turns out, rupidium, the miracle mineral, isn't a gift. It's a slow-motion poison. Every altar is dying from the moment he takes his first breath. The bodies start to sag. Voices rasp. It's not a glitch. It's not bad luck. As you'll find out, it's baked in and inevitable.
From the start, it was
And the worst part is you can't fix it. Not internally, at least. They're doomed, and the one who doomed them is you. The crawler that once buzzed with life now feels like a hospice care ward clattering across the desert. The game forces you to sit with it, too. The unbearable weight of guilt and suffocating knowledge, simultaneously too much to feign ignorance and too little to actually do anything. It makes you slow down and really hear the silence where laughter used to be. To realize the problem isn't the sun rising in the sky. The problem is that you chose to make people out of yourself, and now you have to watch them die. Which makes the next choice all the more damning. Do you keep cloning? Do you birth yet another yawn into certain sufferings so that the crawler can limp forward? This is where the philosophy that the writers at 11-bit built their story around really starts to shine through.
The absurd man says yes, and his efforts will henceforth be unceasing. Come again?
Specifically Machiavelli. You may remember him from your 7th grade history class. He wrote in The Prince that a ruler's duty is not to be good, it's to endure. Virtue means nothing if it collapses the state. Cruelty, betrayal, even killing can be justified if they secure survival. And when you hit that button again, summoning someone who you know will waste away, it feels like Machiavelli's smirking at you from 500 years in the past. Because the logic is airtight. You need another set of hands. Without them, the crawler stalls and everyone dies. With him, you buy days of life. The cruelty works, which is exactly what makes it unbearable. But effectiveness does not silence the weight of it, and that's where Camus lingers. You may know him from such places as being a famous mid-20th century French-Algerian philosopher, and my Bee and Puppy Cat video where I butchered his name. In the words of the king of absurdism, Albert Camus, his French name. How did I not catch that? Anyway, he described life as absurd. We hunger for meaning, but the universe offers none. Yada, yada, yada. Life, am I right? Now, his answer to this wasn't hope, but defiance. In the myth of Sisyphus, he pictures Sisyphus smiling as he shoves the boulder back up the hill, knowing it will just roll back down all over again. It doesn't matter to Sisyphus. The struggle is itself the point. Jan is that figure now, Sisyphus with a wrench. He patches leaks, stokes reactors, soothes dying selves, and then wakes the next morning to do it all over again. The boulder's never going to stay up. Systems will collapse, clones will fail. Yet you, and by extension Jan, keep pushing. Not because you think salvation waits ahead, but because to stop would be its own kind of death. Like a very real, very literal, very toasty kind. Regardless, the game doesn't let you stay in that loop forever. Act 2 forces a cure, and cure here deserves air quotes. You get 2 doors to choose from, and both lead somewhere ugly. Tabula rasa means making a blank Jan, a body with no history or memory or chance at life, theoretically.
Of course, we will have to dispose of the body. Whoa! What the fuck? Looks like I didn't use enough sedative.
He's created only to be cut apart for brain tissue, the raw material to patch the others. It works, technically, but it tears the crew apart.
Oh, so you've decided for us, without even giving us an alternative. That is so smart.
Mark my words. It's downhill from here.
You saved lives by erasing one, and everyone knows it. They also know how close that tabula rasa body is to being them. No matter what you say, to them, that's a brother you killed. The other option is neural implants. Nobody's carved up, but nobody's free either. Every alter survives physically, but they're wired into corporate control. Maxwell may lose ground behind this door, but Agatha, Ally Corp's spin doctor-in-chief, and Lena step in, using the implants as leverage. You didn't kill anyone, but you rewrote their autonomy. A quieter betrayal, but still a betrayal. Both paths fracture the community you built, and both prove the same point. Survival comes tied to compromise, and every solution is poisoned. No matter your choice, the ultimate result is the same. Technician Jan, the first, the angriest, the one who never forgave you, finally acts. He stages a mutiny. Not a sulk or a tantrum, but an outright coup. He knocks you unconscious and leads others into the wasteland, versions of you turning their backs on you. The metaphor doesn't need underlining here. Mechanically, it's devastating. The crawler, once noisy with work, feels like an abandoned mall. Vital roles vanish. No one refines materials. No one maintains crops. And of course, the repairs sit undone. Problems cascade until you're scrambling to keep the wheel turning at all. But of course, the deeper wound isn't logistical, it's existential. The game spent hours and hours drilling into your head that these aren't just workers. The alters are selves. And so when they walked out, they carved holes in your identity. That mutiny drives home the game's bleakest point. Jan Prime isn't the true self while the alters are fragments. He's just one branch among many, no more or less valid. And when the others snap off, they take their fruit with them. What remains isn't unity, it's hollowness. Jan is left staring at a version of himself that might not even be the best one, just the one that, serendipitously for him, you control. From there, the tone collapses inward. The crawler, once a precarious community, becomes a mausoleum. Beds lie cold, plates go untouched. This isn't a solitude like the opening when Jan was simply alone, it's subtraction, the loneliness of knowing exactly what you drove away. And gameplay mirrors that collapse. Expansion ends, and even preservation is unsustainable. What's left is duct tape and triage. Fix one leak while another opens. Comfort one altar while another one shuts down. It isn't progress, it's maintenance, and maintenance feels like erosion. The crawler staggers forward. The sun presses closer. And the inevitability of collapse seeps into every single click and choice. Jan doesn't climb a heroic arc, he erodes, sanding himself down with every compromise. He becomes less a protagonist and more a residue, like Macbeth, hollowed out by decisions that he can't undo. By the time the Act 3 text is plastered on your screen, the crawler isn't just creaking under the sun, it's sagging under the weight of your compromises. The so-called cures you reached for in Act 2 didn't fix anything cleanly. They left scars. Some of yourselves are gone, others linger but won't meet your eyes, and the kitchen is turned into a morgue with coffee cups and mush. Yes, mush again, because of course botanist Jan left with the others. And then the rescue ship shows up. The cavalry, the out. It should feel like a trumpet blast of triumph, angels from heaven, but instead it's just a wet, squeaky fart.
All right, boys and girls, let's go retrieve some allied call passes.
Because after everything you've done to keep this crawler moving, the game knocks on your door at a reasonable hour and politely asks, do you mean it literally? Like survival? Oxygen in the lungs, another day in the logbook? Or do you mean it like a story you can tell yourself later without gagging? It's not just make it until pickup, it's what story the pickup will tell. And that's where Maxwell's desperation spills out.
We're so close to changing everything for the better. You can't let me down now.
You. What about my alters?
Your alters? I know you've grown close, but you need to think rationally.
He doesn't just want the Rapidium, he wants the myth of Rapidium. Proof he can hold up to a boardroom while the alters get swept under his rug and into his machinations. Which is why the Jans hatch a plan. The fake arc. Knowing his obsession with the element, you build a massive decoy storage unit. Meanwhile, the real cargo, the surviving alters, are stashed inside, tucked in suspended animation like. And this isn't just a set-dressing twist. Before the arc can even work, Jan Prime and Scientist stumble on the reason the mission was doomed in the first place. A tree-like anomaly phasing in and out of reality, blocking the signal from the planet. Together, they jury-rig a device to drag it fully into phase, whatever that means, and tear it apart and finally light the beacon. Only then can the rescue team even find you. From there, the choices fracture like glass under pressure. If you do nothing when you speak to the rescue team, you hand the whole mess over to somebody else, essentially letting Maxwell keep the alters for his pet projects, while Jan Prime's death is faked, giving him a new identity as one of the company's lackeys. That's erasure, the survival of the body at the expense of the self.
Just so you know, your new passport is ready. Remember to use that one, okay? It's Maxwell's request. He wants to be on the safe side. That's why he got you a private charter. They're never too meticulous about those.
It feels safe. You're still breathing, still technically alive, but the cost is identity itself. You become an employee ID number for a company that was willing to exploit you at every turn. A poster child, a bullet point in someone else's presentation. There's comfort in it. No more choices, no more burdens, but it's a comfort of a padded cell. You're alive, sure, but not in any way that belongs to you.
He wants to know your motives are pure. If you're fully dedicated to his undertaking.
Dedicated? What's that supposed to mean exactly?
Well, I think he's suggesting you should join them. Become part of the experiments yourself.
What?
Or you take the ship, the heist ending. With Lucas at your side, you might slip out with autopilot and sleeping gas. Or maybe you blow the bay wide open and claw freedom out of blood and smoke. I.e., kill the rescuers. Either way, every version of Yon that survives gets stuffed inside the Ark and smuggled home under the nose of the very people who made them. That's integration, the attempt to carry everything, to refuse to leave any part of yourself behind. On paper, it feels noble. No one abandoned, no branch cut from the tree. You took the harder path. But the reality is suffocating. More people means more mouths, more weight, more risk of the whole plan collapsing. And it isn't just bodies you're hauling, it's baggage.
Seriously? The readings show that there's signs of life inside this crate. And it's considerably heavier than the other ones. We can't just ignore it. You might be a hero, Dolsky, but you need to cooperate.
Every bitter Yon, every resentful Yon, every wounded Yon gets a seat on the ride home, and those fractures don't magically heal just because the door's shut. Integration means lugging the full mess of who you are into a world that only has room for one version of you. And of course, Botanist Yon makes his own offer.
Our life made more sense to me than it did to you. I had a sense of purpose. My wife, my family, children, maybe. What if I was the one to come back as Jan Dolsky?
And if you choose this route, while the real original Yon Prime joins the alters in the fake Ark, you, the player, quite literally take control of Botanist, nay, new Yon Prime. That's substitution. It sounds almost merciful. You've made so many compromises. Let someone else shoulder the load. A gentler Yon, a softer Yon, walking home under your name. You saw how he interacted with Lena. It would be better, wouldn't it? Substitution is tempting because it feels like redemption by proxy. The idea that if you can't live well, at least someone else can live well in your stead. But it's still abdication. It means giving up the only thing that ties all these fragments together, the thread of you. You disappear and someone else tells the story. Maybe they do it better, maybe they don't. Either way, you're gone. What is the purpose in Yon Prime's story, the choices that you made, i.e. the entire f***ing game, if you choose this option? Then there's the path that most people take, but no one wants to admit they're walking. Curation. You don't save everyone. Some are left in the desert. Others you just never bothered to make in the first place because it didn't look like they were all that useful. What survives is a hand-picked best of versions of yourself. Or at least the ones that can still stomach the sight of you.
But I don't want your f***ing help. Just go, okay? You're making things worse.
Curation feels cleaner than integration. You're traveling lighter, sharper, with only the versions of yourself that make sense. But it's also dishonest, because pruning a tree is not the same as healing it. The cuts stay raw. Every missing face and silent voice reminds you of what you left behind. Survival here means deciding which parts of yourself deserve to exist. And that's a choice you can never really justify. The Alters doesn't want you obsessing over whether you picked the right ending. It wants you staring into the wreckage and asking what those endings even mean. Because here's the thing. At its core, the game was never about Rapidium, never about Maxwell's greed or Agatha's press releases. Shocker. What it's really about is how every possible you eventually has to collapse into a single story. For hours, you've been juggling mirrors, roads not taken, and the end forces you to choose how those roads resolve. Integration, curation, erasure, substitution, these 4 philosophies of self dressed in survival game clothing. Carry everyone, prune the tree, give up the wheel to your life, or let Jesus take it. Each option feels possible, and maybe even attractive in a vacuum, but each one cuts. And if you're thinking, wow, that's bleak, you're right. But it's also honest, because that's how real life often works. Every choice you make kills 100 others. Every door you walk through slams 10 shut behind you. You don't get to keep all your possible selves alive. Nobody does. And that's why the final moments sting so hard. They don't deliver triumph or failure. They deliver memory. A postcard from an altar who slipped away, or a trial where Lucas goes down beside you because he too chose that path not taken. Lena's voice returning across the comm, or not. The world goes on, fractured, and the story refuses to close that box for you, because how could it? The point isn't the rescue ship or the fake arc, or even whether Jan survives. The point is what survives with him. And this is where the Camus thread comes back to hit you right in the ribs. Jan is Sisyphus with a wrench, yes, but he's also every fragment of himself running up that hill, wanting to make a deal with God, get him to swap their places. The absurdity isn't just the endless struggle, it's the fact that you could never roll all those versions of you to the top. Some had to be left behind. Either way, the boulder still came back down. The only question left is whether you can smile at that fact, whether you can accept that survival means living with the selves you sacrificed along the way. It doesn't ask, did you win? It asks, who were you when you chose your own ending? And then it refuses to grade your paper. No karma meter, no glowing aura, no horns sprouting from your head, just silence. Just the look on Technician Jan's face when he walks out. Just the echoes of lives that will never be lived. And maybe that's the answer. Maybe survival was never about getting Jan back to Earth. Maybe survival was about remembering, carrying the weight of the selves you conjured, the ones you lost and the ones you betrayed, and refusing to let them fade into nothing. Because if you walk away untouched, if you treat the altars like mechanics or stat boosts, then the story collapses into grind and is exactly what I was afraid it was going to be. But if you walk away haunted, if you remember the weight of those conversations and the way the crawler felt so empty with every loss, then you understood it. So the credits roll. The sun rises, the crawler dies with a groan, you make it back to Earth, and eventually the screen fades to black. And for a moment, you'll catch your own diffuse reflection in the black LCD screen. Not sharp, not cinematic, just a blurry, washed-out ghost. And it's not Jan staring back, it's you. That's the game's real curtain call. It's that quiet moment when the story is over and you realize the only Jan that actually survived is the one who pressed the buttons. You carried the Jans you liked, cut the ones you didn't, surrendered, substituted, or lied, but every path collapsed to this. You looking at yourself in a darkened screen. And maybe that also explains why this video sat in limbo for so long. It's now 3 months since my last post because, not to be too melodramatic, I had a bit of an existential crisis about the future of the channel. Making and releasing that COVID video kind of broke me. And if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, exactly. Nobody watched it. Okay, that's not fair. Over 3,000 people have, but it felt like nobody when compared to past videos. And I really do know that on a rational level, I'm not owed views by anyone. At all. But emotionally, it hits different. The video making process is fun, but it tends to hollow me out by the end. I feel like I just pour so much of myself into the process that by the end, there's not much left. Usually, the response will kind of propel me forward and fill that back up, but this time it didn't. And I know this sounds whiny, and I'm not blaming anybody other than myself. Doing the full runtime in Blender was definitely a choice. I love the product, but was it worth it? I don't know. What other choices could I have tweaked to make the video more palatable? And how far would I have had to go to get it seen? Is it still Theseus's ship in the end? Who knows? These aren't really questions to be answered. They're questions to be pondered. What I do know is that afterwards, I had no creative drive. So I wrote this script, but it sucked. And so I scrapped it, I rewrote it, I recorded it even, and I scrapped that because I hated it too. Rewrote it again, and now here we are. Which feels a lot like the end of the altars itself. Do you try to drag every part of yourself forward, even the broken ones? Do you prune until you're unrecognizable? Or do you give up entirely and just let someone else take over? These aren't just Jan's choices, they kind of felt like mine too. Burnout makes you wonder which parts of yourself you're still willing to carry and which one you'd happily let go. It's a chance to do some spring cleaning of the soul, if you will. Maybe making things online is the same. Every project is a choice about which parts of myself I carry forward, which parts I cut, which I hand over, which I let die. None of them are clean, all of them sting. And at the end, I'm still here, pushing up that boulder. But maybe I can do so without the hope of acclaim at the summit and still have a smile anyway, even if it doesn't happen. Maybe. I'm trying. But either way, I'll see you in the next one, and thanks for watching this.